Welcome, one and all, great agents from across the country. Today is August 24th, 2017, and this is Mastermind call number 140. And we do have one person in the queue. Thank you. Star 6 and hit 1 if you'd like to actively participate. And I know we have some announcements for you today. We have some new company news. So, Tim, you want to start off with tell them what's new with all the leads?
Sure. So a couple of things that I'll just touch on. One is that we are rolling out some new enhancements to the subscriber portal. One of the requests that we've had for quite a while was the ability to do some editing to the leads in the system, give it a bit more CRM functionality. And we have a larger project kind of on the books, which is to make some changes to our system that really make it more a significantly more robust CRM. But in the short term, we're going to release a few of the features that we've already done. One of them is to allow individual editing. Previously, we maintained one copy of each record in our database that, in essence, lived there, and each individual subscriber just had the ability to see that, review that, and we would flag the information that you added to it. But now we've done it in such a way that each subscriber has a full copy of the entire database for their county, and you can make any changes that you need. So if you find an address that needs to be changed, or you get a new phone number, or your notes apply specifically to that particular account, you can do that. You can also delete a lead if you looked at it and you're certain you don't need to ever look at that one again. You can delete it from the listing. So you have the ability to manage it, again, as a more direct copy now, and that's taken some work for us to go do because we wanted to make sure we maintain the full integrity of the database. Should you ever have a problem and need to have something restored, we can certainly take care of that for you, but in the meantime, you'll be able to do what you need to make that happen. The other thing I'll talk quickly about is the obituary program. We are getting asked about this more and more, and I kind of give you a quick update on it. So we pulled the data set. We've had the data reviewed. We've taken a look at it. We've looked at the data for the counties that our initial groups have asked for. The data is there. We've pulled the data. Now that we've looked at it, what we want to make sure of is that we can offer this in a consistent way. Our business is built around offering you incremental monthly updates to each one of them so that you have a program that basically you can set up and let it run. So part of the challenge that we have and have had is to make sure that we're comfortable with our source of supply long term, because it's a different set of people doing the research for obituaries than the folks who hit the courthouses and pull that data for us. So we're just waiting to make absolutely sure that we're comfortable that that group of people and those folks are not only capable of doing the job, which we're sure that they are, but that this is a manageable process, because we don't want to start something that we know has a lot of value and then have to backpedal and not get it right. So just bear with us a little bit longer. We will continue to do it. We've yet to charge anybody for it, and until we're ready to roll, we're not going to be charging you for anything, so none of you have seen any charges on your bill. And that's kind of where we stand on that. So that's a general update on that. Continue, if you're interested to be involved in that program, certainly hop in, fill out the form, and we'll add you in the queue. And we think it's going to be a great program, but we just want you to know that we take a lot of time, and it's not helping us at all because we're just throwing money at it to make sure we understand the program well until we make sure that it works for you. So we'll keep you posted, and those are my updates for the week.
All right, perfect. Chad, what would you like to share from a coaching training perspective?
I don't really have anything for now.
All right. You want to? I know we're a couple weeks away from our Ask an Experts call, and I think our next expert that we're going to ask is going to be a probate attorney. And we were going to call in the group also for other suggestions of people that you'd like to hear from. Chad, I know you have some ideas that you want to throw out to the group. And what we're doing, guys, the first Thursday of every month, we're changing the format of this call a little bit, that we're starting with a 15, 20-minute segment on somebody who, an industry expert that we feel like would benefit everybody. And if you haven't listened to the first one we did, we had the president of the National Association of Estate Sale Companies. I believe that was her title. And that was really good. We got a lot of great feedback from that. And I believe the next one, what'll be a week from Tuesday, will be a really seasoned, good probate attorney that'll be able to tell agents what to do and what not to do. And Chad, you had some other ideas, and then I think we were just going to call in the group. If anybody else had any suggestions, just send us an email.
So, I mean,
support.
Typically, you guys hear us talk about, how to deal with people in the industry, and the idea is to get those people that are in, that are complementary to what we do in this industry, and hear it from the horse's mouth. So just like Julie, she is the authority in the estate sale space, so she was a great guest. And I'd like to have a probate attorney come on and tell us, exactly what their experience has been with realtors and what they would like to see from us as realtors and investors, what would make their life easier. So it's just getting it direct from the source. If anybody has, I have a few in mind, but I guess we couldn't have too many of these. I would actually like to have your past clients come on the call and talk about why they chose you and what was stressful and what was easy and what really stood out to them during the transaction. So we'll probably have some of those, some testimonials from our past clients, from people, using our system. But if you have, probate attorneys or fiduciary relationships, or you have past clients that you would like to share with the group, we're going to do this the first Monday, the first mastermind call of each month. We'll interview folks like that, just so you can kind of hear directly from the source, what really made a difference for them.
Excellent. And finally, Chad, I get asked almost on a daily basis, when is the next mastery class? I'm assuming that'll be the third week of September?
I think that's the second or third week of September. I haven't booked it yet. I need to do that.
Okay.
So I didn't know if I was going to. We're actually speaking at the Explode conference in Maryland in September, and I just booked that yesterday. So I'll book Mastery now that I know what my travel dates are.
All right, perfect. Tom, anything you want to share from a customer service perspective?
Just the usual, Jim, just to let everyone know if they need anything to contact us at support@alltheleads.com. We track those and assign them to the appropriate people to get back to you as quickly as possible.
Perfect.
That's it.
And all right, excellent. We have one person in the queue, so hopefully they have a 40-minute question. Otherwise, come on, guys, participate. *6 and hit 1. We want your questions. We want your wins. We want your challenges. We're here to help you. So just hit *6 and hit 1, and you'll be up next. In the meantime, let's go to the person who's been patiently waiting in the queue. It says anonymous, but you're the only one in there. You're up.
Hello?
Hello. Yes, sir. That's you.
Hi. Well, my name's Rich Jones. I'm out in Oregon.
Yes, sir.
And I don't know about a 40-minute question, but
that's all right.
Just initially, I'm just getting started with this. And so I was curious, as far as the probate process goes, is if somebody has a will or if they don't, does it still go into probate?
It does. So the will just determines who the personal representative is. So typically, in a last will and testament, someone will be named in there, or multiple people will be named as the administrator of the estate. And if it's in a will, they're actually called an executor or an executrix. If there's not a will or somebody dies intestate, then someone from the family will step up and say, hey, we lost this person. And they'll have a list of heirs that they produce for the probate clerk. During the initial hearing, the court will say, who's administering the estate. Usually the person who's kind of driving the process will stand up and say, I'll be the administrator. And if nobody objects to that, then at that point, that person becomes the administrator. Now, if none of those people come forward, but the estate still needs to be probated, or if those people are in conflict, then the court will actually appoint a public administrator, sometimes called a fiduciary, to administer the estate based on state laws. So there's kind of three levels. You've got, if they were prepared and had a will, you'll have an executor. If they weren't prepared, died intestate, but the family's on good terms, you'll typically have an administrator. And then if the family was estranged or they didn't have family or the family's in conflict, then you'll have a public administrator or fiduciary driving the process.
Okay. So, as far as I know, on the leads, there's always an appointee as far as someone to contact. So that could be an administrator, not necessarily an executor.
Could be. So, for example, yesterday we had a lady in Seattle who thought her data was wrong because there was one public administrator that had, I think, 6 or 7 deals in a single month. And my advice to her was go to his office as fast as you can because he's obviously got a huge workload this month. And if he knew that there was a real estate agent that could take a lot of that workload off of him, do you think he'd be interested? Sure he would.
Absolutely.
So it can be a less emotional transaction because it's B2B at that point, right? It's professional to professional. How can I help you help this family or help this estate? So they can be, you kind of take the emotion and the grieving out of the situation, and it's just business. It's what he does every day. It's what you do every day. So those can actually be, really, really good relationships to have. And we have one of our subscribers, he actually is part of a fiduciary group. So he goes to their networking events and meets with them and has a really good reputation. So they send him a steady stream of referrals. So if you can build those relationships, those can be even more valuable than the attorney relationships.
Right. So my other question is how long do you see the probate process usually last? I mean, does it vary?
It does. Like here in Virginia, we have a fast lane. I mean, you can settle it end to end in 90 days, and then everything kind of remains open for 12 months, and just in case somebody comes forward with usually with a liability claim, and then it closes up. In other states like California, it can take well over a year because the courts have a lot of pressure on them. There's a massive population, and it's a very complicated process. So it really varies. I don't have a whole lot of experience in Oregon, but I mean, usually you can actually get stuff sold, and there's loopholes. I guess I'll call it a loophole. Like, for example, in California, because it's a really complicated example, if the administrator petitions the court for full authority, then they can go ahead and sell everything. They just can't distribute. So everything can be sold, and the liquidated cash can just, the cash can sit in the account, and then the court can, tell them when to distribute. But most attorneys, for whatever reason, and I think and this is one of the questions I have for the attorney that's coming on the call, is why do most attorneys tell the family and the real estate agents that the house can't be listed or can't be sold? And it's usually because when a real estate agent gets a listing, they're like, where's my commission check? When can we do this? When can we sell this? I got kids in college. And they just aggravate the hell out of people. And that's the attorneys I've spoken with and the people that have prospected attorneys, it's usually they tell people that because it gives them breathing room to go do what they do, and if they're dealing with multiple families. But if they know they're working with the right real estate agent that's going to be professional, not aggravate them, and actually help them move the ball down the field, then they're probably going to not be giving that advice to the family.
Right.
So that's why it's important that these attorneys know you and understand how different your approach is than just a typical real estate agent that wants to do sales and marketing and chase commission checks. So you're actually looking at the family's goals and his goals and rolling that into the solution, making your solution match that. And that's what you want to demonstrate to the attorneys.
Right. Do you even recommend trying to get a hold of the attorney initially?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
So it's best done in person. We find that mail and phone efforts prove to be discouraging. What has worked best for everybody, and in any type of market, is find the attorneys that are specializing in this. You can sort your list and find the ones that have multiple files each month. But just find, get real clear in your head what it is you can do to help them. So how can you make their job easier? How can you take the redundancy out of the process of answering questions about the house and about getting personal property sold and about this and that? And you have that conversation with the family instead of them. And when you feel really good that you can take, you can be of real value to that attorney, then go knock on their door and say, hey, we're proactively reaching out to families. Each month we pull the data from the courthouse, and I keep seeing your name. I really just thought we should know each other because I think I can really complement your business. And by the way, I've got a ton of past clients that don't have estate plans. Would you mind if I send you a steady stream of referrals?
Right.
So
cool.
There's very few agents in the country that will step that far out of their comfort zone to go build that relationship. So it's actually pretty easy. Once people step out and go do it, they're amazed. They're like, oh my God, they loved me. But very few of us ever get outside of that comfort zone to go do those meetings. Just a story of encouragement. I mean, we have subscribers that have been with us for a couple of years, and they're doing just as many deals from their referral network, the attorneys, as they are from their marketing efforts. And you don't ever want to stop marketing to the personal representative, but you can get to a point where you're getting steady business from the personal representative, the direct mail and the phone calls, and you can match that business with the ones that, because you think about it, even if we're killing it, we're doing 2 to 4% conversion rates on this list. Well, that's a 96% failure rate, right? 96% of them worked with somebody else, didn't sell the house, this or that. If these attorneys understand your business and what you can do for the families, it just increases your surface area. So they can endorse you and say, hey, don't call the real estate agent from church. They're going to screw this up. Call Rich.
Right. That's pretty cool. So do you go about tracking down the attorneys? I mean, how do you, obviously their address is listed and everything. Do you just give them a call? You just go into their office, that sort of thing?
Most people just drop by, and if Barb Bloomer, if you're on the call, I would love to hear an update from the last 7 days. So what Barb did was she pulled the list from like 56 probate files over 25 attorneys, and their plan was to visit each office, all 25 offices in the past week. And I think they had a handout, like a goodie bag or something that they were going to give them, and some flyers. They made a flyer specifically for this purpose. So, Barb, if you're on the call, I'd love to hear an update on how that worked for you guys. A couple of weeks ago, we had a guy who came. It was his first week in probate ever, and he identified 11 probate attorneys, drove them in one afternoon, and got 3 great relationships from it. So three solid attorney relationships can feed you for the rest of your career.
When people ask me which should I work, in the attorneys or the executors, I say yes, both. I mean, obviously the executors are now business. The attorneys can be a great steady stream of referrals. And I just wanted to add something. You ask a few questions that I commonly get asked too is, how long is this process going to take? First of all, the only way you really avoid probate is if you have a living trust. And unfortunately, everybody should have one, but less than 5% of Americans do. And that's a service you can really provide to these people when the process is done. Recommend a good attorney to them so that their children don't have to go through this, arduous process. And then agents ask me, how long is this process going to take? And most people don't have a trust, but a majority of the people do have a will. So if there is a will and the executor is spelled out, the beneficiaries are spelled out, generally, you can get this done in 3 or 4 months. I've seen attorneys do it in 6 weeks if you got a really diligent attorney. The ones that tend to drag on longer than that is, what would you say, Chad? Maybe 20% of the people don't have a will. Is that a pretty fair estimate, or do you think it's higher than that?
It's 45%.
45%. Okay. All right. So a little bit more than half have a will. So I didn't know that. So a little more than half that do have a will, it's a relatively easy process. The ones that don't, it takes longer. But like Chad said, there's ways of getting around it. There's ways of getting everybody funded sooner. And, recommend to all of your sellers that have a will and have a living trust if you have significant assets, because it does speed up the process. But if they do have a will, it's relatively quick. If they don't, it can take longer. And people ask me often too, like, do you need court approval or not? And Chad, typically the ones that need the court approval is when there is no will, correct? Is that a fair statement?
No, it really it's more dependent on the state. So like in your state and my state, we don't need court approval. Like in Virginia, they give them, like, using an attorney is optional. And I would say, in my experience, 0 of my clients have ever had a probate attorney. And when I talk to the probate clerk here, she's like, yeah, it's just not necessary. I mean, we give them a package that tells them what to do. So here you can liquidate everything and direct it back to the bank account, and then you go to the hearing and the judge says, show me what you did. Okay, let's distribute. So like I said, we kind of have a fast lane, but states like California and Hawaii, other states have more complicated processes where you have to, go back and get approvals at certain levels and to sell certain assets. So it doesn't really depend on, the structure, who is the executor as much as it does the state laws. And the best thing you can do is just really familiarize yourself with your local and state process and find those nuances. Like if you get a fidelity bond or the will waives it and you petition the court for full authority in California, you can speed the process up by as much as 6 months. And as a real estate agent, how cool are you if you do that for one of your clients that's sitting on $1 million asset with the risk of a massive market correction right now in California? So it's if it's in their best interest to expedite the process, you can be really valuable in helping them do that if you understand your local process.
Mhm. Yeah, I was originally thinking that a little bit as far as if there was no executor chosen, that it might seem like the family might have a little bit of a come together moment as far as trying to figure out who's going to be the person to handle everything. But, maybe that doesn't create a delay. I don't know.
It usually doesn't. I mean, typically when you file probate, they're going to schedule the hearing, and the family will figure that out or fight it out before the hearing. And if they're still fighting, like we had a person on the call last Thursday, and she was getting one side of what I believe was a more complicated story. But, the court, that you had multiple siblings, and the court stepped in and said, nope, I'm appointing a public administrator. And more likely than not, if you knew the whole story, it's because they weren't getting along and, their guns were pointed in different directions. So the court said, you know what, to protect the estate, we're just going to have a public administrator do this. So it probably didn't slow the process down. Now, it didn't make it any more comfortable for anybody, but it gets done versus having family members squabble and fight and probably end up in litigation.
Right. Is it as far as listing the house while it's in probate, do you guys recommend that?
Yeah, I recommend it, and it's a good way to connect with your attorney too, with the probate attorney. So, hey, Mr. Attorney, I just wanted to introduce myself. We've actually just listed Jane Doe's the home of the Jane Doe estate, and I just wanted, before I upload this in MLS and before I market it, I just wanted to introduce myself and see. I want to make sure that I'm not making this any more complicated for you. So what can I do to make this as easy as possible? Like, do you want to see any specific language do we need specific language in a sales contract? Do you want specific language in the private remarks? Because you're going to need to, if you're in a state that requires court approval to sell real estate, then you're going to need to make the contract contingent upon that approval, and the closing date needs to hinge on that date as well, within X number of days after court approval. So being proactive and reaching out to the attorney is going to impress them, because chances are they've had plenty of bad experiences with agents who didn't think that through. So it's a really good reason to connect with the attorney and say, hey, we're on the same team now. I just want to make sure I do a good job for you. So, but yes, absolutely get these houses listed as soon as possible. It's hard to come up with a scenario where it's in the family's best interest to not sell a home that's sitting vacant. And what they probably don't realize is the current homeowner policy, more likely than not, does not cover the house now that it's vacant. Most people don't realize that. There's only a couple of underwriters that will actually insure vacant properties. They probably haven't thought about what a burden the lawn care and cleaning gutters and those little things that you do around the house every day. They don't realize how quickly those pile up and devalue properties. So it's you got to sometimes help people see the problems they don't know that they're going to have, and usually getting a home on the market is in their best interest.
Okay.
All right.
So
Excellent.
My last question is when somebody files with the court, is there always a probate date where it's going to come out of probate?
Not when it's going to come out, no.
Okay.
It comes out when the process is completed, correct?
Well, I guess can you clarify what you mean by coming out of probate?
Well, I mean when probate ends.
Yeah, so they're all going to have different end times based on the number of assets, the number of liabilities, how aggressive the personal rep was or the attorney, how backed up the courts are. There's a million variables. Like the only thing that's consistent is when they file probate, it becomes public record, and we get that to you at the beginning, and that's really consistent. From there, they're moving at all different paces.
Okay, gotcha.
All right, great questions. Thank you for participating. We have 3 more people in the queue. Want to make sure we get to everyone. Next up is phone number ending in 2972. You're up.
Hey, guys. Jonathan Smith here. Can you hear me?
Hey, John. Yeah, hear you great. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, let me just start by thanking you all. I really appreciate all the value that you all are adding, so much of it for free, too. I'm an ISA here in the Northern Virginia area, and I'm brand new. I've been doing this for a couple of months and was just getting pummeled until I found you all a week and a half ago. I took the probate mastery course with Chad. It was phenomenal. And so I just got a couple of questions here. One of them is, one of the main rejections I'm getting is we've got an attorney and they're helping us out. My question is, what are the things that people think their attorney's going to do, but in fact they don't, and they're surprised by it in the process?
Great question.
I think that's what I mentioned when I think it was Rich that was on earlier. So one of the things that I kind of covered in that role play was, imagine the redundancy, because every family is going to have the same questions, right? Well, what do we do with all the stuff in the house? How do we get that stuff out? How do we do this? How do we do that? And I'm sure that the attorney's hearing those first, because they're kind of, the probate clerk and the attorney are kind of the first points of contact when this is in its most shocking state in the beginning. Mm-hmm. So if you can help those attorneys by saying, listen, when these folks are asking these questions, just get them over to us, because what we do is we start with an initial consultation, and a big part of that is what's the plan for the personal property. How we're going to secure the house and make sure it's protected, with vacant insurance is a good example. So you kind of highlight those problems, to the attorney, and he's like, oh my God, I hear these questions all the time, and you've got all the solutions. Right. Why don't I just get them to you, and you do all that work? So it's a lot of people, they've never been, all the ones that I've worked with have only done it once. And most will never do it more than twice in their life. And it's always going to be a stressful situation. They're always going to have questions. I've yet to meet anyone who doesn't really need help. Now, you'll meet people who won't admit that they need help, and they'll struggle through it. And that's just their personality. But think about the questions you would have. Well, who do I call to get this house empty? And how do I make sure I'm selling it for the right price, and all these things? And that's really what the attorney needs to understand about your business, is that you or somebody on your team knows how to value personal property and real property. You know how to get personal property sold for the most amount of money and real property sold for the most amount of money. You know how to set up to get people to set up estate plans, and you understand the probate process and how to guide people through it. And you can take all those redundant questions that are non-legal questions that they don't, they shouldn't be doing that stuff. But you're becoming a resource for them. Be like, you know what? Why don't you offload all that on me and let me answer those questions? Let me meet with the family and talk about anything non-legal. Let me take that.
Excellent.
Because you're going to have a solution for it on your team.
I love it. What do you have any information or do you have any stories of people seeking to do a similar thing, prospecting attorneys, but instead prospecting CPAs, and any value that we could add to them?
I've tried it. My CPAs weren't too interested. I just never did get them to engage. I really I expected a much different result. They, for whatever reason, felt like it was a violation of privacy to even, to even talk to their clients about it. So I kind of hit a wall on it. I would say that I didn't try real hard because I had a pretty steady flow of business. I still think it's a good idea, and hopefully, you get a different result than me. I think it's something great to try because, you've got this team, you're set up, and, I was on the call with Everything But the House, which is a large estate sale company, probably the largest and fastest growing in the country. And they said a large part of their business is actually downsizing, so families that are making plans for end of life. And that's where CPAs and estate planning attorneys can really help you out, and financial advisors. So if their clients are coming to them starting to ask these questions, then just like the attorney, there's a lot of questions a CPA can't answer about liquidating real property. Like they know from a tax standpoint, they can give great advice on that. But from a sales and marketing and how to get them fixed up and how to get the most money, they don't know anything about that. So if those CPAs, financial advisors, estate planning attorneys, if they understand what you do, and when somebody comes and says, hey, this asset's in a trust, we're thinking about selling it, then they can say, hey, let me endorse this guy. Let me give you a name. This guy can sit down and kind of put together a whole comprehensive plan for this. I'll handle the tax part of it. Let him, he's the expert in getting the most amount of money in the shortest amount of time, and we'll just work as a team. That's the goal. So you're on the right track. Like if you can just find the right professionals to work with you. But the big opportunity there is not after death. It's kind of in that end of life phase where a quarter to, probably 25 to 35% of people will actually sell their real estate before they pass away because they need to liquidate assets to pay for long-term care. Because very few Americans have a long-term care plan, but almost all of us end up in long-term care at some point or rehab.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. All right, I've got two more questions. I've got every spoke in the wheel, so to speak, except a senior transition company. What would you suggest in finding one of those? Is it just as simple as Googling that and then prospecting some of them, or would you recommend another strategy?
You mean a moving company?
Yeah. You've mentioned it a couple of times in a lot of the calls that I've heard.
Some markets have senior-specific moving companies. You're in Nova, so I would imagine there's probably multiple ones up there. Like here, we've got one that's called Crowning Touch, and that's what they do. They do senior moves. And I don't know. I think they're a local business, but I would just look at senior moving service. Start there and just talk to a couple and ask them about their business.
Okay. Last question is, I mentioned that I'm an ISA. I know that Sam, I've heard her on a couple of calls as well. I know she is. But just a question, would you be willing and able, Chad, to connect me with any ISA or ISAs that have just been really successful in this? I want to learn from how they've built a system to connect with their agent and work as a team. I'm heading this up for our company. That we're all new at this. And I want to build a good system here, and curious how I could learn from others that have done it well.
Yeah, so Sam will be my top pick. If you jump in our Facebook group, you can it's Sam Bingham, Binjham. You can just tag her. She's really good about helping folks in there.
You said Bingham? How'd you spell it? Okay, got it. Perfect.
And Sam's what's cool. The reason that's such a good fit for you is she's just down the road in Virginia, in Richmond area. Yeah. So it's going to be like the three of us are kind of in somewhat similar markets. But I would work with her. She's really taken the provide value first approach and really, really focuses on the needs of the family and then puts together a solution and gets the real estate sold. And that's why she's been so successful. People first, right?
I love it. Great, guys. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your kind words and great questions. Absolutely. We have 3 more people in the queue. Thank you to all of you for participating. Next up is phone number ending in 9788. You're up next.
Hi, this is Sylvester Mojo, and thank you for allowing me to be able to ask the question.
Sure.
I had a good success. I have 2 ISAs that are calling for my investors, and basically they're approaching it from the investor side that they would like to make an offer, and then handing it out.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, I don't know who that was, but thanks for the musical interlude there. I got up and danced for a second. Go ahead. I'm sorry about that. Finish up. that I got, and I've been communicating with the executives, actually the CFO for the company of the executives, because I can't get through to the executives, but I was able to talk to him, and he set up an appointment with me for tomorrow, and there's one property that's in probate, and there's another property that she wants to sell. The one that's been in probate, the one that's in listed for $1.2 million, which they just canceled, and they're entertaining an investor offer. So my question is, when I go to meet with them, I don't have an investor that's able to handle this type of property yet, and he made it clear to me that we're not looking for a listing agent, and I don't want to waste your or our time. How would you approach that when you go there?
What's the house worth?
I'm still in the process of...
We know what it's not worth because it just sat on MLS, but what do you think it's worth?
For over a year, 412 days. I would venture to say probably around $800,000-900,000.
Okay. So if you had an $800,000 or $900,000, let's call it $800,000. If you had that under contract for $500,000, could you not find somebody to buy it?
Well, if I had it under contract, how would I put it under contract?
Well, you take a purchase and sale agreement and put it on a 60-day close with like $100 in earnest money, and leave yourself some contingencies. Leave an inspection contingency in there, and like a finance contingency, and say, listen, I'm going to have to work with one of my funding partners on this, but I love the house. And that way, if no one comes through, if you don't find an assignee, then you exercise your finance contingency and say, listen, my private lender fell through. It doesn't have to be a conventional loan. It can be a private loan, and that contingency is solid. So you get it under contract with good terms and give yourself some breathing room. That 60 days is probably enough. And then once you have it under contract, you assign your contractual interest for a wholesale fee. And on a property that size, I mean, if it's worth $8 and you get it under contract for $5, you might be able to assign it for $6 and take $100,000 on that, just for finding a cash buyer.
And how do you convince somebody to sell it to you for that amount when they had hopes for selling it for $1.2 million?
Well, that's probably outside of the scope of this call, but it's really, understanding their motivations. And, it's amazing to me. I bought a house, it's been a week or two ago. I mean, I bought a house at probably 70% of value because he had 3 hours to sell it. And, people, you never know what's motivating people, why they need that money. So the best thing you can do is, just like everything else I talk about, focus on the people and the situation first, learn as much as you can, and then talk about the real estate. And, that real estate is just, they wish it was cash, but it's not. So it's a big problem for them, it sounds like. And
Chad, I was going to add, as an investor going in there too, I think, because you're clearly representing your investor, you're not representing the seller in this scenario. But going in as an investor, I think I would ask them some more questions, find out what their motivation is, and see If there isn't a
Right.
real strong motivation, you probably aren't going to. But if you find out that there is, I had one time that the best probate I ever did. By the time the probate was filed, they were 2 years behind on the payments, and they were 5 weeks from sale at the courthouse steps. And I mean, once I knew that, I didn't purposely take advantage of them, but they really, I knew it was worth going because they didn't have another option. You know, if you have a situation like that, then no offer's too low. If they're really looking to still get 1.2 million, Chad, that's a good question. If they're really, well, they're obviously not looking to get 1.2, but let's just say the same situation. What if they were really looking to get 800,000, and they're not going to list it? I mean, does he have another play there, or does he just? You probably still want to go make face-to-face contact with them.
Right. If you focus on the people in the situation and you realize they don't have an absolute need for cash and dumping it is not in their best interest, the reason they told you they're not going to list is because they listed with a damn idiot the last time. And they're really unhappy. They think you're just as stupid as the last realtor. And when you're there face to face, it's not too hard to prove them wrong on that. And if you feel like it's in their best, and I've done this a lot. I've gone in thinking I was going to buy a house and then realized that, you know what, the right thing to do here is to list this because they don't have to sell it. Some people have to sell, like they absolutely need to do it right now. But if you get in there and you find that's not the best thing for them, then just show them why it makes more sense to list at a reasonable market value and sell for more money in about the same amount of time. Like if that house is listed, you know, I mean, if it's, let's again say it's worth 800, you throw it on MLS in your market at 780 right now, you know, and it just came down from 1.2, you're going to get some attention, and you know, in today's market, you'll probably get multiple bidders and drive the price above list. So if that's the best play for them, that's what I would offer. And if you look in, I think I shared it in the session 3 of Fast Track. There's a net sheet, a seller net sheet template that I gave you guys. When I'm in this situation, I fill out that net sheet with 3 scenarios: cash, as is, and retail. And I will let them kind of self-select which option is best for them. A cash option means what can I sell it for this afternoon. An as is what can I put it on MLS and sell it as is, where is, no contingencies, no BS, just at a discounted price. What can I sell this for to, you know, on MLS? And then retail is obviously what they've tried and failed at because they had it overpriced or undermarketed or probably both. And you kind of talk to, and the 2 things that choose which of those boxes they fit into are their target date, how much time do you have, and their motivation, obviously in the equity level. So target date and motivation are kind of one and the same. But if you look at, you know, does the asset have equity? Is there equity in the home? And what is your motivation? And is that what's the timeline of that motivation? Do you need money in 30 days, or can you wait 90 if I can get you a lot more? If they absolutely can't wait longer than 30 days, you pretty much have one option. It's a cash sale. If they can wait and be patient to make more money, then you can throw it on MLS at a 10, 20%, you know, discount and sell it as is, where is, you know, for maybe $750. And if they're willing to wait and trust that you know what you're doing and you can do a better job than the last agent, more importantly that you can price it properly, then they might choose retail. But let them choose. Don't ever go in, you know, I try to never go into an appointment being like completely sure on one outcome. I think that's really up to them. They own the house. But just be prepared for either of the 3, any of the 3 scenarios.
That makes sense. Now, the fact that I wasn't able to do my pre-qualifications because I've been talking with the CFO of her company, should I press more on having a conversation with her, or just go into the appointment since it's already set for tomorrow at 10?
So you've never spoken to the actual property owner?
No, just the CFO of her company.
Do you have all the details on the property? Have you seen the MLS pictures? You know what condition it's in?
Yes, and I'm actually going to go and preview it today as well.
So I would imagine that this is probably a very busy person, and their time is very valuable, and they're giving you some of that tomorrow. So I would just focus on being as prepared as possible. The time you would spend trying to talk to them today, spend that time getting real clear on what you can do with this house. And when you get there tomorrow, forget the house, focus on her, and focus on understanding what her motivations are, what her goals are, and just really impress her with the options. And I think you're probably going to find yourself in a situation where you can say, you know what, I kind of had a feeling that it wasn't in your best interest to sell this house cash, so I put together this CMA or market absorption analysis, and I want to show you how we can price this to get you sold really quick, but for a lot more money than I can offer you cash. Now, I'm prepared to write an offer right here today if that's what's in your best interest, but I don't think it is. You want to take a look at what I brought? And I think you'll probably have that conversation and come out with a $800,000 or $900,000 listing tomorrow. So just be really clear on your price strategy in case you go as is or retail, and show her how you're going to position her in the market to get a quick sale, and you're not going to waste her time with a $1.2 million listing. But also be prepared with a contract to write, and sign on the line. Do you have an LLC or a company?
I do.
An entity? Yeah.
Yeah.
So take a contract pre-filled with your entity information and your contingencies written in. Leave yourself a finance contingency. Leave yourself an inspection contingency. And if that really is in her best interest, then write the contract. But I think you'll probably find listing is going to make the most sense for a house in that level and probably in really good condition.
Well, I'm going on two appointments. One is the probate one, and the other one is her own property, which is a ranch that was listed 2 years ago for $775,000. So I'm meeting her at the ranch first.
Nice.
And I'm thinking of going to preview the ranch, to see if there's an investor that's interested. Most likely, I'm going to point towards going to the house and previewing the house as well.
Let me ask you this: do you know any investors that would buy a ranch?
I don't. Well,
do you know any investors that if they were funded could do something with that house, like that you really trust?
Yeah.
You may actually take them with you, and it's a bit of a good cop, bad cop here. But if she's walking, if she has a parade of people coming through trying to, just see what number she'll get from people, you might want to distance yourself from the cash offer. And a good way to do that is have your investor do it. So you can take your investor and be like, listen, he's going to be here for the first 15 minutes. Like, this is a guy that really could pull the trigger. And then once he leaves, then you can have the conversation if you think you're going to transition it to a listing. That way, if she demands a cash offer and it leaves a bad taste in her mouth, it doesn't destroy rapport with you. So you can still be kind of an intermediary, and that guy can become the SOB that offered her $500,000. And you can continue in the conversation. I've shot myself in the foot many times trying to play all the parts. And once if they demand a cash offer and they don't like it, you're done. I've never gotten a listing after that number left my mouth.
Well, my investor lives out of state. I'm going to see if I can do a FaceTime call and have him beat up the house for me as to why he's looking to make the offer that he is, and then step into the realtor shoes and say, hey, here's how I can help you. If you have the cash, let's put some money into this home to maximize the value, and let's get it listed for X amount of dollars.
What you'll probably find, if she has the CFO of her company communicating on her behalf, she's probably just fed up with it. She's fed up with owning real estate there, and she just wants it done. If you can show her how you can take, maybe you have to manage the caretaker and work with the ranch manager and take all that off her hands. But I would study what the last real estate agent did really closely, because you're talking about, we're talking probably $1.5 million in volume here. So it's worth doing a little bit of homework, and if you think listing is, if she's not under huge financial pressure and not trying to liquidate to avoid bankruptcy or something, you can get her out of the situation by taking on that responsibility. Work with the caretaker of the ranch, work on taking care of the other house, and list them for closer to retail.
Right.
Just spend the day learning as much as you can about the house. I wouldn't try to call her because she's probably really busy and it might dock you some points. But
right.
You want to be in a position tomorrow morning where you're like, you know what? I'm either buying this house or listing this house today because there's no way anyone knows more about it than I do.
I think, and I was just going to interject here. We have two more people in the queue. I want to make sure we get to everyone, but I don't think there's a realtor or an investor on this call that hasn't had a seller absolutely tell them they were going to do one thing and then do exactly the opposite. So the lesson here is just because she says she isn't going to list, go in with an open mind, have multiple options, and be prepared no matter, what happens during the conversation. Like Chad said, there's a good chance that there isn't an urgency. She will list with somebody. She just doesn't like the people she's listed with so far. And I'd say also, Sylvester, if you need any more help on this, just reach out to us after the call. We're always available for extra conversation. I just want to make sure I get to everyone else in the queue. And regardless of how it turns out, especially if you get the two listings, would you please come back and share the results with the group next week?
Absolutely. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right. You're very welcome. Thank you. Great questions. Great, interesting scenario. Phone number ending in 2957. You're up next.
Hello there. This is Jim Sliker. And I was just listening to the guy from Oregon. I'm also from Oregon, and I just wanted to bring it up that I was also a financial advisor. I've dealt with a lot of wills and trusts for the state of Oregon, and I have a good idea of how the system works. I'd be glad to have lunch with this person if he's in the Portland area, or take a phone call and help him out on how the system works here in this state.
Yeah. Are you a member of our Facebook group?
Am I? I'm not sure. I don't think I am.
So if you go to Facebook and just type in All the Leads Mastermind,
okay,
you'll find the group that corresponds with this call, and you guys can connect in there. And actually, just so we can make sure we get you together, email support at All the Leads with your name, and we'll make sure we connect you guys.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Excellent. Generous offer. Thanks for the help. All right, last person in the queue. It's been a great, no pressure. Hopefully we saved the best for last, or at least we saved a good one for last. Phone number ending in 4798. You're up next.
Hi, my name is Deb Sarka, and I'm in the state of California.
Hi.
And hi, I really appreciate this call because I'm hearing so many great ideas. And I'm new to real estate, but not new to the real estate industry. I'm an experienced escrow officer that's handled so many different types of probates, estates, things like that, where I just thought I would utilize my transferable skills and exercise the relationships I've had with the attorneys that I've worked with. If you can maybe help me or let me know or the best way to transition that experience, meeting with attorneys along the way and building a book of business is what I was listening to. But do you have any other ways that, with my background, that might be a good trigger in working with attorneys that maybe I don't already know?
I think you just have a stronger position than we do. I mean, you've dealt with, the title issues that are associated with probate. So that's just one more value point that you can put on your list of things. But I think the approach is the same. Obviously you're going to reconnect with those people you already have a relationship with and say, hey, I just wanted to let you know I've kind of transitioned from being the escrow officer to being the real estate agent. And here's why. Because I know that I understand the probate process. I know how to navigate it. I know I can help these people. And I just enjoy the work a lot more. So I just wanted to let you know, because I know we had a great working relationship, and hopefully, we can smooth out some of your transactions, because I understand your side of it and the family side of it. so we can make your life easier. What do you have any situations that are tough for your clients right now?
Well,
and just start that conversation.
Yeah, see, I just recently got my license, and I just saw that there would be an opportunity to help the families. And for the agents that I had worked with in the past, I kind of felt bad for them because they didn't understand the process. But in escrow, our job is to kind of help everybody along and you know, learn the process, right? So I have not actually listed or worked with any agents yet. I'm sorry, any attorneys' offices or families yet. I'm just in the process of laying that foundation of the transition.
Gotcha.
You know,
one of the points I would
go ahead, Chad.
One of the points I would use for the attorneys there is, you know what? I've done this for years, and I've done the real estate agent's job, a big part of their job while they got paid, and I realized that I can do the same thing and actually get paid for that. So I've seen what a lot of agents put attorneys and escrow officers through, and it's really important to me that, you know, I don't do that to people. So I really chose to work with this group of people because I know I can bring the most value. And same thing to your business, I can make this a lot easier on you by helping the families. So help them understand, you know, that you're actually, because you understand the process, it's going to make their probate, you know, the probate attorney's process is going to become a lot simpler because they're not going to have to drag somebody through the transaction.
And what I was gonna add is absolutely don't hesitate to share your past experience with the executors too, with the family members.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't need to maybe leave out the part that you're brand new in real estate, but you're not only a agent, but you've seen it from the other perspective, from the closing table, and you know you've got attorney relationships, and that's an extra valuable asset that a lot of agents don't bring to the table.
Well, if this would help some of the other agents that are on the phone, you know, on the call listening, if there's a way that they can open their transactions, their escrows in advance a little bit and see what the condition of title looks like, because a lot of times that, and from the title and escrow side, that seems to be something that people don't realize, that side of the process and how long that might take to get certain things ironed out before it's ready to be you know, conditioned for title insurance, for a transfer of title. So if they can maybe look at it like to be proactive in opening an escrow, working with an escrow officer that's familiar with them, it should make it a lot easier for all parties involved to kind of know what you need on that end to move that ball forward and to proceed to close. Anyway, but I appreciate the call. I'm going to check out your Facebook page, and I'll check in with you guys and let you know how the first one goes.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much. Great points. Great call today, guys. We're keeping it, I think it's our longest call. Everyone is good. It's probably one of our most diversified. We talked about a lot of different things today, and I always like to end these calls by thanking y'all for taking an hour of your time to be here today, and also challenge you, you know, take one idea, one thought, one thing that inspired you from today's call, go out and put it into practice and come back next Thursday and share your results with the group. Thank you so much, everyone. We will talk to you same time next Thursday. Have a great week. Take care.